Hi everybody, this is Courtney with Fiber Fox Studios, and today I'm actually going to be doing a question video. This is my most frequently asked question that I get here on this channel, and that's how do you mix different multiples? And I'm going to show you how I do the math, because that's where it all lies, is we have to do math in order to mix different multiples on our different projects. There's literally no way that I could think of everything for you guys, so I'm going to teach you how to figure out whatever project you're making, what different designs of mine or others that you could use in your project. So we're going to be zooming down. I'm going to go over the math with you and kind of walk you through it. The best thing I can tell you to do is grab a calculator and do the math with me. That will help it click. I think for a lot of you, that's what I need to do anyway. So if you're like me, you're going to need to do the math out too, so that you can see it for yourself. And then you can go on the channel and look down my different playlists. I've got different things separated, and you can see what all patterns you would be able to follow along with my little example and mix together. So I'm going to zoom you guys in and we're going to get started. So here at Fiber Fox Studios, we really pride ourselves on very unprofessional presentations of information. My handwritten note here, but I'm going to walk you guys through what we're looking at and what we're doing in order to figure out what all multiples we can work together in a project. So I started by choosing a design. This is how it all begins for everyone. You see something and you really like it, and you want to do a project with it, but you don't want to do a project with just one design following all the way through. You'd like to mix it up a bit. So that's where the math comes in, because that's where it all lies. We have to do math to figure out what all will work with this multiple. So I chose a pattern. It's in this example, it's going to be a multiple of 12 plus 4. And I want to make a blanket. The larger the project is, the easier it is to combine a lot of different multiples into that project, because we have so many working stitches to work with. Makes it so much easier. So I'm going to do a blanket, and I'm taking my multiple. We're going to start with this part of the multiple. The main multiple, or the base multiple. We're going to ignore the plus stitches for right now. So I'm taking my multiple, and I'm going to decide how big of a blanket I'm going to do. And that is, any number can go here, whatever project you're wanting to do. So I'm taking my multiple and I'm going to multiply it by something. In this case, it's going to be 15. And this is going to be the size of my project. I'm going to have 180 chains, working with that multiple of 12, doing 15 repeats of it. So I have 180. Now I'm going to take this number. Once I've determined it, I'm going to now begin dividing it. And this is going to give me the answer to all the multiples that I can combine and do on this blanket that's 180 starting chains. So I have 180. I'm going to divide that by 15. Again, you can put whatever number you want. You can start with 4 and just keep dividing all the way through and write down everything that comes out nice and even, because we want to work with things that are going to evenly divide into our starting chain for our project. So 180 divided by 15 equals 12. So I can do a multiple of 15 12 times, and it'll still be 180 stitches. So we know we can use a multiple of 15. Now we're going to go down here. 180 divided by 18 equals 10. So I can use a multiple of 18, and it will have 10 repeats of it on my row. 18 times 10 equals 180. So that's how you can reverse check your math. Again, with my same blanket size, 180 divided by 20 gives me 9 repeats of it. So I know I can use a multiple of 20, and I'll have 9 repeats on my row. 20 times 9 equals 180. Now we're going to take 180 divided by 9. And we can do 20 repeats of a multiple of 9 on this same blanket. Down here, 180 divided by 10, 18 repeats of it. So I know I can use a multiple of 10. and I'll have 18 repeats on my row. 10 times 18 equals 180. So now let's talk about those plus stitches real quick. So the plus stitches, the second half of our multiple, these are always going to be the stitches needed on my patterns. I'm speaking about mine. I don't know about everyone, but on my patterns, these are the stitches that are needed to even out the design and to do our traditional single crochet at the start and end of the row, plus our turning chain. So one of these always drops off as our turning chain. So when we do our math all the way out, we can double check ourselves a little bit further. You don't need to do this step if you choose all of these multiples with a +4 on the end. If every multiple you choose has a +4 on it for this example, so if they all end with a +4, then they're going to be worked exactly the same. And the end result, after you add on those stitches, so we have done our starting chain. Now we need to do +4 on the end equals 184. One of those chains is a turning chain, so we always will be subtracting 1 from our count. And we end with 183 total working stitches. So after row 1, once we complete it, when you count all your stitches, you will have 1 less than what you chained to start the project. That is always, because there always will need to be 1 turning chain, because we work our starting chain and row 1 in the same color. That's the only time we don't cut our yarn. We chain out and then we turn and start row 1 with that same color. So keep that in mind. If we do this on all of these, because we're choosing patterns that all are going to be +4. So 10 +4, 9 +4, 20 +4, 15 +4, etc., etc., etc. Every pattern that you go and look up to see what do we have, you're going to be using the multiples you figured out will work, and you're going to identify patterns that say +4 on the end. Then you don't have to do anything else, because everything, when you work it out as you've planned it with all the number of repeats to get to this, when you add your plus stitches on here and take away your turning chain, all of these would be 183 total working chains from row 1 forward. So now we're going to talk about when you choose a pattern that does not match. So you have got a 28 +3, and you want to use it with any of these that have a +4 on the end. How do you do that? That's what we're going to do now. So our first step that we're going to take is we're still trying to make the same blanket in this example, with 180 being our base multiple, what our blanket size is going to be. So I'm going to take the first part of the multiple, the main multiple of 28, and I'm going to divide it into the 180 to see what we come up with. So we're going to come over here. So I'm going to take 180 starting chains and divide that by 28. And we are going to have our calculator spit out a number that's like this: 6.42857, blah, 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 blah. It's a long one. Does not divide evenly. So that right there is what we have to learn to deal with in this step. So I am going to figure out, I know I can do my multiple of 28 at least 6 times on this project that's 180 starting chains because of this number right here. So this number that falls before the decimal point, whatever it is, that number, we're going to take it and we're going to multiply it by our multiple to see how many starting chains we get when we do that. So we take 28, which is our multiple, and we multiply it by the 6 that came out, the number before the decimal. And that right there is going to equal 168. Now we're starting with a project that has 180 starting chains before the plus stitches. To add this to that same project, we can only fit the multiple of 28 a total of 6 times, which means it's going to take up 168 stitches. And this is before we add those plus stitches on. So we already know we have a difference right here of 12 stitches. Between the two patterns, that's our difference. So we're going to have to figure out how to work this difference. But we need to actually do the math all the way out on both of these patterns to see what we really end up with. So doing math all the way out, just like we did just a moment ago, we're going to take that 180 starting chains. We're going to add our plus 4 on, because that's what most of our patterns that we're using have. And that equals 184. But we need to take off our 1 turning chain. And so we subtract 1, and that gives us a total working number of stitches of 183. So 183. So now we're going to do that same thing with this 168. So 168, which is our multiple of 28 times 6. The multiple on the pattern that's 28 is a 28 plus 3. So we're going to say plus 3 equals 171 minus 1 chain for our turning chain equals 170 total working stitches for this pattern when you worked it all the way out and it's done. So what we really have right here is a difference of 13 stitches. That's what we have to figure out. We're going to work X number of them at the beginning of the row and X number of them at the end of the row. In your best case scenario, this ends up being an even number that you can just split into, and you can equally divide your extra stitches that you have to figure out what to do with between the start and end of the row. In this case, it doesn't evenly divide because we can't do half of a stitch. So 6.5 is not going to be, the answer in this case. So we're going to have to place, and each person's going to decide what they like the best. We're going to have to place part of the stitches at the start of the row. So I'm going to do 6 stitches at the start of the row, and I'm going to do 7 stitches at the end of the row. So that means when I am starting the repeat for this pattern, I'm going to work 6 stitches in on this multiple of 28 plus 3. When I go to add that to my project, I'm going to work 6 stitches in, and then I will start following this pattern's repeat all the way down the row. And then when I get to the end of the row, I'm going to find that the pattern is going to end, and then I will still have a number of stitches left that I will need to finish up. So in the way that I decide to work these depends on what's going on that row's repeat. So if the row's repeat, always look to what is the first stitch in the repeat doing. So when the first stitch in the repeat is a single crochet, I will then work all my extra stitches right here, 6 single crochets, and then I start with the repeat, single crochet, double crochet, whatever the repeat is. And then at the end of the row, I'm going to mirror whatever I did here at the start. So if I use single crochets to start, because that's what the repeat's first stitch was, then at the end, I'm going to do 7 single crochets at the end of the row. So whatever I decide, if I'm doing 6 double crochets, then at the end of the row, I know I'm going to do 7 double crochets in this scenario. So hopefully that makes sense. You will find that sometimes this is going to happen. You're going to have an extra stitch or several extra stitches when you're combining the patterns. And most often this is going to happen when either you don't do any of the math to figure out what will work together with the pattern that you first chose, or it'll happen when you are taking the patterns that have a different additional plus stitch on the end. So you're taking a +4 and a +3 and trying to work those two together. That's where this extra math comes in, and you actually plan it out as if you were going to be working this as a blanket and working this as a blanket, and look for that difference between the stitches. When it's even, you're going to be able to handle that easily. This, I think, is the biggest problem for a lot of people. They want everything to be exact and very symmetrical, and that can be hard unless you plan out and design everything perfectly. When you're just grabbing things that you like and you're trying to make it all work, sometimes it just won't work out. That's why it's good for those of you who do want the complete perfection. You want even row starts and row ends. You want them to match and line up. That's why doing the math out before you start combining patterns will be the best thing that you can do. Because for some people, having just one more extra stitch at the end, that will bother them. Now, even a trained eye would probably not notice that extra stitch down there at the end of the row, but it will drive some people crazy. So keep that in mind when you are trying to combine different patterns. It is best to pick patterns that all match at the end as far as the additional stitches needed to even out your row and to work the pattern. So if you select a 12 plus 4 as your first one, every other pattern that you are going to do the math on and check to make sure that you can use it, you want to identify patterns, go look for a 15 plus 4, 18 plus 4, 20 plus 4, 9 plus 4. If these were all based off of the 28 plus 3, you would be looking for patterns that have a +3 on the end and that will evenly divide into that starting chain that you came up with for your project. So it'll evenly divide and try to match those the extra plus stitches is what I always call them. Totally technical terms there. I know you guys are like, what? But I'm trying. Goodness. I do hope that this video has been helpful to you. I hope that it's answered some of those questions that you guys have had. This is the #1 question I get on the channel. And when I'm answering, when people are giving me information about their project and I'm answering this, I'm having to do this math. That's what I'm sitting there doing in order to tell you all of these. And I'm also having to look at what patterns I have available so I can tell them which patterns to go to. Hopefully, this will cut out all of that extra stuff and you guys won't have to wait on me to answer you. You'll now be able to do the math yourself. And if this video was helpful to you, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below letting me know that you understand. I'm always very nervous about doing these types of videos because I feel like I don't explain things that well. So if you enjoyed it, if you got something out of it, leave a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below. If you have more questions, leave your question down below. The more information you can give me when you are asking a question, the better I can come back with a response and kind of tackle everything that you need to know. So if you have a question, feel free, leave it down below in the comment section, and I'll get back to you with an answer, I promise. So until next time, bye for now.